This edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose is sponsored by Accenture Federal Services. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, the Defense Department moves out on its huge cloud contract. Pentagon CIO John Sherman and his team will tell you more. A huge opportunity to unlock decades of data and the cyber solutions for the Pentagon's Zero Trust deadline. Welcome to FedGov Today with Francis Rose. Several task orders are in the pipeline now for the Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability contract at the Defense Department. That's according to the department's Chief Information Officer. John Sherman is CIO at DoD. John, welcome. It's great to see you. We'll meet your colleagues in a moment. Thank you very much for joining me today. Who do you have on the panel with me today?
Francis, it's an honor to be here with you. First, I'd like to introduce Ms. Leslie Beavers. She's the Principal Deputy CIO. Her job is to be my partner and working with me on everything to run the CIO organization and working with the department. To her left, we have Ms. Lily Zeleke, is our Deputy Chief Information Officer for Information Enterprise. Her portfolio includes areas like cloud, software modernization, defense business systems, and user experience. And to her left is Lieutenant General Bob Skinner, who is the Director of the Defense Information and Systems Agency, or DISA, as well as he serves as the Commander of Joint Force Headquarters Dothan under General Paul Nakasone. He is, with his DISA hat on, our operational lead on areas like Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability, major procurements for technology, and really our operational arm for CIO.
The structure that you have now in OCIO, why is this the structure that you're going to use to meet mission? Why do you have these people in the seats that you have them in?
Well, one, I'm blessed with incredibly talented leaders you're going to see here and in the second segment. To be able to get after some major accomplishments we've done in just the past 6 to 8 months, whether it's Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability, implementation of Zero Trust, software modernization, command control communications capabilities to support our warfighters, and very importantly, how we use our budgetary authority to drive change throughout the Department of Defense. We've got the right team, the right great set of leaders, and very importantly, working with our colleagues at the Combat Support Agency of DISA under General Skinner's leadership with his deputy Chris Barnhurst and his whole leadership team. We are getting things done on digital modernization within the Department of Defense.
Leslie, welcome. It's great to see you. Congratulations on the new job. What do you want to bring to OCIO as John's partner, as he just described it?
Well, I have a unique background because I started out in the Air Force. I think I was in 6th grade when I decided the Air Force Academy was in my future, and thankfully they agreed. And then I had a stint where, because of family reasons, I had to go out into the private sector. And that gave me the opportunity to learn and use Lean Six Sigma, business process improvement skills in a way that a lot of folks in the military don't have as they grow up. So I've had kind of my feet in both the civilian and military all along, and then spent a little time with the Undersecretary for Intelligence and Security, really working the intelligence information portfolio. So I'm very excited to bring that skill set to this job and get to work with John and with General Skinner.
I'm sure John appreciates his IC colleagues too. Lily, welcome. It's great to see you. Software is really the core of what you're working on. What does that look like today in OCIO at the Pentagon?
Right now we're in implementation phase in partnership with our OSD colleagues from research and engineering, as well as acquisition and sustainment. This is really a team effort to leverage the Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability, as well as really the partnership we have across the department to bring modern software practices to the department, to change the way we do software, to bring speed, capabilities at speed and scale, and maintaining the cyber posture that we have today.
I want to come back to that in a moment. General Skinner, welcome. You are just really heavily involved with the cloud operation that John talked about. He referenced JWCC. We talked about that a little bit at TechNet Cyber. What does that look like today, and what's the interaction with John's team and your team at DISA look like?
Francis, great talking to you again, and I'll tell you, it's been an amazing relationship between DISA and CIO, and I'd offer, in my 38 years in the service, it's the best it's ever been. And JWCC is just one of the 240 different programs that we have working with the CIO, and it's going well. In fact, we just awarded our second contract, our second task order. As everyone knows, this contract was awarded in December to 4 cloud service providers that really focus on a multi-classified, multi-vendor, $9 billion contract that every task order is is competed. And so, best value truly for the department as we get after JADC2 and all the other programs that are important to our warfighters on a day-to-day basis.
John, we'll talk more about cyber in the later part of this program, but as I listen to this team, it strikes me that you've been very deliberate to put these strategies out. We've talked about them in the past, and to keep all of your folks, all these teammates, kind of singing from the same sheet of music.
Absolutely. Strategies really set the tenor for what we're going to do. And just this year, we've put out a cyber workforce strategy, for example. We have an implementation plan coming out on that. We have a software modernization implementation plan under Ms. Zeleke we just got out. These really set the parameters of what we do at CIO, and thus allowing the execution, for example, with DISA and with the services and others to be able to get after these priorities.
Leslie, when you joined the office, what was the conversation like when John said, "I want you to do"? What did that look like?
Well, I said I'm not a huge tech expert, and he said, "Well, I have tech experts. I need a change agent." And so, based on that, because it is a big department transition, it's actually a transition that we as a society are going through right now as well. And so, that was kind of the crux of the conversation. And I was like, "Well, it sounds like an exciting challenge, so sign me up."
When you conclude your time at the Pentagon, as everyone does, what will you look back on and say, we did this or that, and that's why my time was successful? I'm satisfied with what I accomplished.
I think it'll be the modernization effort. It was actually a big surprise to me when I went to work at Universal Pictures. At the studio, I was expecting everything to be completely modern, and we had legacy architecture in there. And the DoD has the same kind of a situation, because we were one of the first adopters way back in the day. So it'll be that pivot and helping get the cloud out, get zero trust in place. I think those are critical to our future. I
would love to have you come back. I would love to have all of you come back, but I would particularly love to have you come back and talk about what the similarities and differences are to the Department of Defense and a major motion picture studio. Lily, there's a lot been made of the importance of software all across the Defense Department enterprise. Back office stuff, tip of the spear, all of that. What's the trajectory look like in your view? How is developing software at the Pentagon different now than it was maybe at some time in the past? And what's the evolution look like in your view?
I think you described it well. It's a journey. So right now, the implementation is underway. We have several software factories, so that's one of our goals, to actually make that a norm, really initiating modern software practice era, if you will. And we have several software factories already doing this. We're delivering capabilities at speed, implementing these things that we laid out in the implementation plan. So as you say, we've started, it's a journey, but we need to do more. And the enablers like cloud, and honestly speaking, our workforce initiatives and process improvements really are going to have to be part of this journey, and to enable us to continue to make this more the norm than where we are right now.
General Skinner, similar question to what I asked Leslie about, but particularly about JWCC, because everybody seems to be very interested in that. What does that look like in your view when it's mature and successful 2 years out, 5 years out?
Francis, what I'd like to do is take a broader view. It's not just JWCC, because that's a contract.
Okay.
We have a cloud environment that includes on-prem as well as commercial. We have accelerators, infrastructure as code, that really helps our application developers and our mission partners get to the cloud faster. And we also have a DevSecOps environment. So all those kind of come together to enable us to get to the cloud faster and take advantage of all that the cloud offers.
General Skinner, Lily, Leslie, it's great to see all of you. Thank you for coming. John, you stay right there. We'll be back in just a moment. You can read more about what DoD is doing in the cloud at fedgovtoday.com. John continues, a huge opportunity coming next to unlock decades of data. FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment. If you want insights from agency and industry leaders on the latest topics in technology, management, workforce, defense, and acquisition, sign up for the FedGov Today podcast with me, Francis Rose. I release new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, so you'll stay up to date on the issues that matter most to federal government leaders. Listen at fedgovtoday.com and everywhere you get your shows. Don't miss out on the conversation. Follow the podcast today. Welcome back. Federal agencies have an opportunity to unlock, quote, decades of embedded value. That opportunity is one of 5 focus areas Accenture Federal Services says it sees for generative AI in government. Jennifer Samples, Managing Director at Accenture Federal Services, former Program Area Manager at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. Jennifer, welcome. It's great to see you. What is that opportunity to unlock that data? Do we have an idea of what's there and what to do with it once we open it up?
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And the answer is insights. There's all sorts of questions that you can answer if you can just unlock the value of that data. For example, we hear a lot in the AI space about talent, federal talent. We need more talent. We need to retain that talent. How much talent do we have? And
what talent do they have in order to be able to put on mission, I suppose, is part of what we'll learn from that as well. When that happens, what's the next step for organizations to apply, for example, artificial intelligence, to be able to extract what's there and then apply it? Having it's one thing, and then doing something with it, I imagine, is the next thing.
It's really important to focus on the outcomes that you want. What's that mission outcome that we're driving toward? What problem are we trying to solve? It's not just about the tools. The tools are evolving really quickly, really capable. It's really enticing to think about interacting with data in a conversational way. But what are we trying to solve?
The agencies that you deal with, are they getting better at thinking of artificial intelligence as a tool instead of as a thing that they need to go get some of and sprinkle on whatever problem they have?
They sure are. Yes, generative AI, I think, has opened the door for a lot of people to just kind of play around. Just think about what questions they could ask. You know, you've heard about, you know, the travel itinerary and the different things that you can do in your personal life. Well, obviously agencies are starting to think about that for mission as well. How
comfortable are they getting at using those tools for mission delivery, though? I imagine back office stuff, that's probably a lot more comfortable, but tip of the spear mission delivery, is that something that agencies are comfortable using generative AI for yet?
It's a great question. This is where the work comes in. There's a lot to think through, right? There's being responsible with it, there's the security of it, there's the partnership ecosystem, and we're still working on that. It's a work in progress.
What's the work that all of those stakeholders, though, have to do in order to be able to realize the potential here?
It's really about what are the tools, what are they capable of, what problems are we trying to solve, and then how do we integrate that within the workflows that we already have, along with that human element. Who's using these tools and what do they need from it, and then how can this new technology empower them?
When I first started to talk to folks about data in government probably 10 or 15 years ago, the conversation revolved around the same kinds of themes that we're coming back to now, it seems. What questions can we ask our data? What can we learn from it? What do you think we've learned over that period of time, not just in government, but in academia and in the private sector, about how to use the data to solve the problems, and the AI just is the facilitator of that?
Yeah, we've learned so much. You know, the commercial world is inspiring because you can really see what a data-driven organization can do when they've completely got their arms around their data. And we've learned how hard it is, and what are the pieces and parts in terms of, is it a data strategy? Is it an architecture? Is it a platform? Are we doing it well in terms of analytics? And we need to operationalize that at scale. So different organizations are at different places in that journey, and now we're capitalizing on this interest in generative AI to insert that into that stack.
How has that changed the discussion, if at all, that agencies have, or the questions they ask you about artificial intelligence?
Yeah, that's a great question. It has changed things because sometimes people think it's magic. Let's just get generative AI to do it. And so, you know, we answer a lot of questions about potential use cases. Can it do this? Can it do that? Sometimes it's a traditional data problem. It could be a business process improvement that's really needed, or a database. But sometimes it is a great generative use case, you know, responding to emails from, the clients, the customers of the government. In the military space, we just talked about, think about benefits. There's a lot of questions around that. How can we be more efficient? Let's not make people wait to get their answers. How can we use generative AI in a use case like that it's really suited for?
A federal CIO, not John Sherman, who was just here and will be back in a moment, told me not too long ago, generative AI, I feel like it kind of snuck up on me. Is that a fair observation, do you think? Is it something, because it does seem like all of a sudden people started to use ChatGPT and the others, and agencies are still feeling out how it all works.
So we've been working on large language models for a long time. Think about translation, things like entity analytics. Is this person the same as that person in a fraud scenario? It's been around there for a long time. It's, again, that conversational interfacing where it really, anyone can use it. That's what snuck up, I would say.
Jennifer, thanks very much for joining me. It's great to have you here
today.
Thank you. You can read more about generative AI at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the cyber future of the Department of Defense. CIO John Sherman returns with more of his colleagues when FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues. If you want insights from agency and industry leaders on the latest topics in technology, management, workforce, defense, and acquisition, sign up for the FedGov Today podcast with me, Francis Rose. I release new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, so you'll stay up to date on the issues that matter most to federal government leaders. Listen at fedgovtoday.com and everywhere you get your shows. Don't miss out on the conversation. Follow the podcast today. Welcome back. Defense Department Services and Components will have a pick-your-own-adventure opportunity as they execute on the department's Zero Trust strategy. The department has a 2027 deadline to have that strategy in place. Pentagon CIO John Sherman is back with more of his colleagues. John, thank you again for bringing your team in. Let's meet who you have on this panel.
Absolutely.
Please.
I'd first like to introduce Mr. Dave McKeown. Dave wears 3 hats. He's the Deputy CIO for Cybersecurity. He's the Chief Information Security Officer, and he's also the CIO for Special Access Program, or SAP IT. Underneath him, we have key areas like implementation of Zero Trust, oversight of cybersecurity throughout the department, and that critical SAP IT portfolio, among other areas. To his left is Mr. Kevin Mulvihill. Kevin is the Principal Director for Command, Control, and Communications, or C3. In that area, we have topics like positioning, navigation, and timing, satellite communications, tactical data links, National Leader Command Capability, Spectrum, and 5G, all very critical for warfighting. And to his left is Ms. Christine, or Chris Condon. Chris she's the Deputy CIO for Resource and Analysis, or RNA. Under Chris, she does our budget oversight, not only for our CIO budget, but the entire $58.5 billion IT and cyber budget, helping me as CIO oversee that, and also, very importantly, our cyber and digital workforce strategy and implementation is also under Chris's area.
It's wonderful to meet all of you. Thank you all for coming today. Pick your own adventure. I love the terminology regarding Zero Trust. What did you mean by that, and what does that look like? It
means for Zero Trust, we're going to tell the components, and are telling the components, the what, but not the how. When you have an enterprise as large as the Department of Defense, 3.5–4 million people, and all the services and components therein, we set out courses of actions or strategies to get to Zero Trust in terms of a COA 1, which is the brownfield approach, COA 2, we're using the JWCC clouds, or a COA 3 is a private cloud approach, or some combination therein. And telling them what they need to do, but not how they need to do it. And very importantly, too, we've told them the when. By 2027, by targeted Zero Trust, to have the 91 capabilities we've laid out on our Zero Trust strategy.
Dave, I imagine you wake up in the morning, and 2027 is probably one of the first things that you think about. You said recently you want ZT, the end goal is to have it be an integrated product. What does that mean?
Well, our Zero Trust strategy consists of 7 pillars. And we have 91 capabilities built into our strategy. We were the first to define exactly what we meant by Zero Trust with those 91 capabilities. And those 91 capabilities are spread across the 7 pillars. We've learned over time that we're not real good at integrating products on our own. And we are wanting to follow more of a weapons system platform model, where we buy an aircraft that's already pre-configured, all the software is there, everything works well together. We're trying to work with industry to develop integrated products that satisfy all 7 of those pillars, all 91 of those capabilities, all at once in an integrated fashion without us having to do much of the integration ourselves, because we're really not that good at it.
Welcome, Mr. Mulvihill. It's great to see you. 5G is under your portfolio, as John just described. What does 5G look like in terms of where it's come from, where it sits today, and what you want to do moving forward on 5G? And also, I imagine you're thinking about next G also.
Right. That's a great question. So in October of this year, the 5G transitions from underneath the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. They've had 9 different pilots underway, everything from smart warehousing to improving airfield operations to improving our virtual reality training. But the transition to the CIO that happens in FY24 is a clear signal that the department is moving from piloting to consuming 5G capability at scale. Right now, we're working with our network, mobile network operators to come on our installations, and we're providing them guidance on how they'll develop and employ 5G on the base. We're going to try to use the Open Radio Access Network, or ORAN, capability for Department of Defense installations. And we'll continue to partner with research and engineering for 5G enhancements, especially around security and partner force interoperability. So we look forward to that and really making room for next G, which is right on the heels of as we roll out 5G.
Do we have a timeline yet for what next G looks like, or is it still sufficiently in motion? It's
a lot of development right now, but underpinning next G is really our department's spectrum sharing strategy, where Secretary Austin in 2021, under the Electromagnetic Spectrum Superiority and Implementation Plan, carved out EMS operations, but under that was electromagnetic warfare and spectrum capabilities. Under that, we have spectrum sharing capabilities the Secretary wanted to do. And we're partnering with our interdepartmental allies, the National Telecommunications Information Agency and the Federal Communications Commission, to really look at a sharing framework here at home where we can make access for 5G and the Gs that'll come after that, but at the same time balance the economic opportunities for the nation and allow the Defense Department to execute its national security mission.
Ms. Condon, welcome. It's great to see you. You have the workforce piece of this, helping to develop all the folks who are going to execute all of the things that we've talked about all throughout this program. What's that look like? What's the state of the workforce today, both in capability and capacity, and how do you want to move that forward?
So I think we've been very fortunate, and we've had the deputy sign out the cyber workforce strategy, which gives us the framework and the processes for how we attract, retain, and recruit the talent we need in the department. As you know, as the audience knows, the threat in the cyber domain and IT world is ever changing. We're trying to be very flexible and use innovative ways to bring in people that normally wouldn't be attracted to the department, not requiring hard educational standards, but reaching out to HBCUs, reaching out through LinkedIn and other forums to bring in people that have the talent and the desire to come work some of this challenging areas.
John, 2027 is not just important to Dave, it's important to you too. How will you know as time progresses that you're either on track or you maybe need to reshape the journey?
So for Zero Trust and everything else, through constant statusing through our portfolio management office led by Mr. Randy Resnick, under Dave, but on everything we're doing. We talked in the earlier segment about JWCC, looking at the consumption of workloads as we stand up the capabilities with those 4 world-class providers. As we look across C3 capabilities, some unclassed, some classified, to make sure our warfighters are ready for that date and beyond. It's constantly what we're doing through our governance with the military department, services, joint staff, combatant commands, and the 4th Estate. This is what we do at CIO, is to make sure we're moving forward on those areas.
Similar question to you, Dave. What do you watch on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis to make sure that you're on track to hit the goal that John set for you?
So Mr. Resnick, who is in charge of our portfolio management office, he's constantly meeting with the services and agencies out there to make sure that they understand where we're going and checking that they're on track. By October of this year, we expect to receive their plans to get to Zero Trust, targeted Zero Trust by 2027. We also look at the finances We have put in our capability planning guidance over the last few years very exact wording about what the services and agencies need to do. And we looked at their spending and we look at their plans for the money that they are spending, that it's delivering the capabilities that we need. And we're also engaging quite heavily with industry. We have industry days where we look at each of the 7 pillars. Vendors that have capabilities in those areas come in and talk to us. We make trips. I bring the CISOs out to the cloud service providers, and we talk zero trust. So we're constantly engaged with not only the Department of Defense, but industry. And then we also share with the rest of the federal government, because I think we are a little bit on the leading edge. What we're doing with our strategy and our reference architecture and the things that we're trying to do with the cloud service providers are also leading edge. We want to share with them so that they can also benefit from the work that we're doing.
Chris, we have less than a minute left, so I'm not going to ask you about finances, which Dave referenced. You'll have to come back and maybe we can talk about that at some point in the future. What are the skill sets, though, that you need most to be able to help each of these people and the folks that we met in the first segment deliver on what their missions are?
Good question. We are constantly looking, and we've identified work roles for the cyber and IT community so we can identify particular skill sets we're looking for. Right now, I think the cyber operations that support the cyber mission forces is one area we're focused on, but we're working closely with all the components to identify where are there gaps, where can we target recruitment efforts and retention efforts.
I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you very much, John, for helping us put all of this together. It's great to see all of you. Thank you very much. You can read more about the DoD's cyber work, including on Zero Trust, at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today with Francis Rose is back in a moment. If you want insights from agency and industry leaders on the latest topics in technology, management, workforce, defense, and acquisition, sign up for the FedGov Today podcast with me, Francis Rose. I release new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, so you'll stay up to date on the issues that matter most to federal government leaders. Listen at fedgovtoday.com and everywhere you get your shows. Don't miss out on the conversation. Follow the podcast today. FedGov Today returns next Sunday morning at 10:30. The modernization plan at 2 federal agencies will be in the spotlight. Dr. Kelly Fletcher will tell you what she's doing as CIO at the State Department. Harrison Smith is leading the digital modernization effort at the IRS, and he'll tell you what's next there. I'm Francis Rose. I'll see you next Sunday. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. If you want insights from agency and industry leaders on the latest topics in technology, management, workforce, defense, and acquisition, sign up for the FedGov Today podcast with me, Francis Rose. I release new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, so you'll stay up to date on the issues that matter most to federal government leaders. Listen at fedgovtoday.com and everywhere you get your shows. Don't miss out on the conversation. Follow the podcast today.